Good afternoon, music world. John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to rank the discography of the legendary Suede. Now, growing up, Suede was a band that meant quite a bit to me, quite a bit to my sort of budding interest in music in my teens. They were a band that really opened me up to a lot of new sounds. Now, they do have a new album out this week. It's called Antidepressants, but I thought that this would be a great time to sort of rank their discography, mostly because I think it's a very underrated discography. If anything, the band has one of the most consistent records in modern indie and alternative rock. So that being said, as always, this is all just opinion, folks, so let's just have some fun. At number 9, I'm going to put 1999's Head Music. I mean, I'm going to be real with y'all. I have tried with this record so many times over the years. I have tried time and time again, but it just really doesn't click with me. And sadly, a lot of that has to do with the production. I've always thought that Suede's glamorous side and that very big, boisterous sound is what's made them so consistent over the last couple of decades. But this album is just butt ugly. The instrumentals often sound very clunky, making for overall a surprisingly stiff experience. And yeah, if you really kind of break down the nitty-gritty, the details of this album, this is still very much a Suede record, and there are a couple of singles here that I enjoy. But the band has always been so consistent, like I said, and this has always been a major disconnect for me. That's why I'm putting it here. At number 8, I'm going to put 2002's A New Morning. This has kind of always been like sort of a transition album for Suede as far as I take it. And it's not necessarily a bad record. There are totally fine cuts throughout. It's lush, it's very colorful. A lot of the usual songwriting of Suede's music pops up here as well. It's certainly a tasteful record at parts. But I've always just kind of felt like this album was very, very middle of the road. While a lot of this material isn't necessarily bad, it's not necessarily exciting either. It's also at a weird point where they're about to take a pretty long hiatus. It's fine. It's a totally fine album. You may enjoy it more than me, but I've always thought it was just very middle of the road. Now, at number 7, I'm going to put 2018's The Blue Hour. Far from a bad record. But I will say for the boys in Suede, this is a very different sounding record for them. I mean, drama and sort of an elegance to the band's music has always been something that has shown up in their music. Hell, I would argue that it's initially what brought me to their music. That classic art rock and glam rock sound brought up to date into the 90s alternative and sort of early 2000s British sound. However, this album is almost a little bit too much of the drama. It's a little bit overkill as far as that goes. This thing is 100% drama from start to finish, and while that can be also, very exciting, you need to realize it kind of takes away a lot of the rock elements from this record. And it leads to some pretty incredible moments like Cold Hands. But I also will say that there's a couple of times on this record that it gets a bit much, and I just want to hear them kind of rock out a little bit. Now, at number 6, I'm going to put 2013's Bloodsport. I mean, this in a lot of ways was the record that got me back into Suede's music. Shortly before their hiatus, I thought that they weren't really putting out their best material, and I was kind of, not really into their stuff at the moment. And, also this is them coming back after not performing together for about a decade. But this is them 100% getting back on the horse and sounding like they never left. It's a surprisingly solid record that just shows the band at their most consistent, really bringing the best of both worlds to the table. That sort of old school throwback 90s alternative sound, as well as the glam rock and art rock that made me fall in love with them to begin with. Now, I will say this album is a little bit more pop oriented, but my lord, does it ever make these hooks soar. Not only that, but the band's performances throughout this whole entire record are nothing short of immaculate. If you really want to hear the band, kind of refinding their footing in a big way, this is it. All right, now at number 5, I'm sorry in advance, but I am putting 1994's Dogman Star here. I know this album is a crowd favorite. I know it is a legendary piece of alternative rock. I really do. And for the most part, I love the record. But compared to their self-titled record and Coming Up, I've always felt like this album was a little less consistent. Heroin and Wild Ones are absolute stunning classics that fit into Suede's very grimy persona perfectly, too. This does really feel like an experience from start to finish, one that you need to sit with. There's certainly nothing wrong with it, but I've always felt like that second half of this record is not nearly as consistent as the first. Sorry. Now, at number 4, I'm going to put 2016's Night Thoughts. If Bloodsports was the record that kind of got me back into Suede, this here was the record that made me obsess over them once again. This album is all about the drama. Like I said earlier, it's initially what brought me to their music, but here it's front and center and classy in the best way. And this album definitely does feel like Night Thoughts, so to speak. It has this very Twilight ambiance throughout the whole record. It's a little dreamy. It's got a ton of pomp and circumstance as well as some soaring choruses. Not only that, it's super consistent. It's maybe not the most hook-heavy record from the band, but man, is it a good one. Now, number 3, I thought long and hard about this, but I am genuinely putting 2022's Autofiction on here. Yeah, this album has very quickly became one of my all-time favorite Suede records. I feel like this album has no right being as good as it actually is. The performances throughout this record, especially Brett Anderson's vocals, wow, they are stunning. The personal lyrics, the youthful sound, a just sea of really just throwback great riffs that are really memorable. Tracks like The Only Way I Could Love You and my personal favorite, Personality Disorder, maybe some of the best tracks that the band has put out in a decade. And once again, consistency is the name of the game. Once this album kicks off, it really doesn't slow down until this album's over. It is a late career album done right, my friends. Now at number 2, I'm going to put Coming Up from 1996. I've always looked at this album as like the older, sleazier brother of their self-titled debut record. It was a first listen love for me on this one. I mean, God, ever since I first heard this thing, I've just been obsessed with it. The band has always had this sort of glam rock backbone, and it's never been more upfront than this. This is where they really mastered it. It's a swanky, glitzy record that has really fantastic production. And lyrically, you know what you're getting when they come to the table here. You are listening to a slew of character portraits of the drug-crazed and the incredibly horny. And once again, consistency. Once this thing gets rolling, it just doesn't stop pumping out hits. Not only that, but Beautiful Ones is maybe a top 5 single of them for all time. It's a brilliant recording, which leads me to my number 1 spot, a very, very special record to me, an all-time classic in my book. That would be their self-titled 1993 debut. Not only is this my favorite record from Suede, it's one of my all-time favorite records of any genre. Growing up a big old Bowie head, listening to this record for the first time, it clicked instantly and it didn't slow down. You are getting the best of every style of Suede's music. There are mesmerizing, mystifying moments of lust and romance, but there's also so many grimier, grittier cuts, displaying UK's dark, gritty underbelly. Drugs, sex, it's all here and it's all direct. And performance-wise, this still, to this day, may be their best record. Brett Anderson's vocals throughout this album are absolutely jaw-dropping. The instrumentals, too, have just so much depth to them. It's a classic in British rock and just a classic all around for me. And if you haven't sunk your teeth into this just one yet, definitely do so ASAP. But let me know how you would rank the band's discography. And most importantly, where would you put their new album, Antidepressants, in their discography ranking? I'll let you know where I would put them in mine when I drop my review tomorrow. And until next time, have a great day, friends.